Hey guys, fiction name my guardian, let's get started. Darkness. Warm. And comforting. It consumes my entire being with its gentle hands. I can vaguely hear my brother, in his dying ramblings, declaring to Piccolo that two more like him are coming, but both are much stronger. I don't give it a second thought though. I'm dying, maybe already dead, who knows? Who cares? I'm just floating on this sea of black. For once in my life, I'm in no hurry. No chasing after the Dragon Balls with Bulma, no hurrying to please my lovely wife Chi-Chi or my son Gohan, and no training my hardest so I can best whatever enemies will pop up next. I'm calm and happy for probably the first time in my life after I met Bulma. Black, if such a nice color. Nothing gets in, nothing gets out, no white shining and hurting my eyes. Nope, just blissful black. But something is wrong. The darkness is being shaken. No, stop it, whoever you are, leave me in peace. Just let me float for the rest of eternity. Whoever was this, unfortunately, isn't a mind reader, and soon light starts creeping up on the horizon of my vision, much like the dawn I used to watch every morning from my home. The light quickly grows and starts burning my eyes, and I am suddenly aware of hands on my shoulders. I snap my eyes open, then snap them shut just as quick and hiss angrily at the evil light. I heard a soft chuckle above me and slowly cracked my eyes open, letting them adjust to the silhouette of the bumhole who pulled me from my comfort. Hey, sorry mate, didn't mean to wake ya, it's just that, you've been lying there for a while and I was getting kinda worried. His voice was old and tired, with an accent I couldn't place. I mumble some curse words under my breath and slowly sit up, gazing at the unfamiliar place. Tiles and people, as far as the eye could see. There was no sky, just white, almost like a really thick fog. There was no ground, just tiles. The people just stood in single file, all facing towards a yellow house, but unlike the lines in a bank, these people were in no hurry to get anywhere. I wonder why. I also wonder where the hell am I? Oh, shit, I mutter, panic quickly rising. Chi-Chi is gonna kill me if I'm late for dinner again. The man next to me chuckled again. I couldn't help but feel agitated that my impending doom was funny to him. Well, that's gonna be hard, but if she manages it, she'd be quite a woman. He paused to think about it, then softly smiled at me. Sorry boy, but someone beat her to it, you're dead. I paused to let it seep in. I was dead, how the foo? Suddenly the memories flooded back to me. Alien, Gohan, kidnapped, Piccolo, fight, Raditsu, brother, hot searing pain, death. Well, isn't that a kick in the face? You remember now. It should come back to you now that you know that you're dead, the man explained, but I paid no attention to him, only quickly observing the different people that stood quickly in line, waiting for okay, I'm not quite sure what they were waiting for, but I have a feeling it isn't one of those amusement park rides I took Gohan to once. I was about to ask the guy about it when another man, this one was all red with a horn, came running up to us. Hope was clear on his face. Excuse me sirs, are either of you Son Goku? Please let one of you be Son Goku, he pleaded with us, as if that even if I wasn't, I could somehow change into Goku. I'm Son Goku, I answer. The red guy let out a huge sigh of relief and walked more calmly towards us. Mr. Son, will you please come with me? It is very important that Lord Enma sees you ASAP. He turned and started walking towards the house. Hey, at least I don't have to wait like all these people, I thought smugly, so long suckers. But instead of saying anything, I gave a thank you nod to the other man and ran to catch up to Red Gu. I'm going to call him Reddy from now on. For a little guy, Reddy sure does walk fast. I walked next to him, staring, hoping to get some information out of him as to why I'm so important, but he said nothing, didn't even look at me. How rude. The house approached quickly and I was ushered inside while Reddy stopped the next people from coming inside. I turned to see a huge desk at the end of the room, covered with disorganized papers, and a frazzled-looking man, a huge frazzled-looking man. His skin was a dark pinkish color and thick, wild hair covered his face and head. In fact, if he wasn't wearing a suit, he'd look just like Chi-Chi's dad, the Ox King, the horns and everything. I wonder if they are related in any way. By the way he was rubbing his forehead, I'd say he felt a headache coming, or he already had one. After about a minute of uncomfortable shifting and fidgeting with my GI, I loudly cleared my thought, to get his attention. His head snapped up angrily. He inspected me for a moment, muttered something, then turned back to the paper he had been staring so intently at. Then, his eyes widened, he looked back at me, then back at the page. It was actually quite funny. I have never seen anyone actually do that before, only in the cartoons that Gohan watches sometimes. Why you? Are you Son Goku? He was just as desperate as ready. I gave him a nod and his hand went to his temple again, but this time, he looked relieved. Finally, we've been waiting for you for a while now, you had me worried. Now, let's get started. He gestured a door on his right, with a smile. Go through this door, go down the path until you reach the very end, you'll see a little planet, go to it. Make sure you don't fall off the side into the yellow clouds of HFIL or else you won't be able to get back up. Am I clear? I nodded, and I started to wonder if this guy had kids. Maybe he is Chi-Chi's real father and the Ox King is just looking after her, or something. With a smile on his face, the one I presumed to be Lord Enma pushed the door and shut it behind me. I stared in awe of what lay before me. A huge serpent sketched off into the distance with various twists and turns and loops. Once again, there was no ground, just the yellow clouds of HFIL he had mentioned before. And the sky, it was a strange pink color, the type newborn girls' blankets would be, soft, yet strangely in your face. I hesitantly stepped out onto what appeared to the serpent's stomach, half expecting it to wake up and eat me or something. I started what looked like it would be a long journey wearily. While I'm not usually an overly suspicious person, something about this place rubbed me the wrong way. I looked at the clouds over the sides. Judging by the occasional flashes, I'd say there was a storm going on down there. Although I have flown above clouds many times, I never have during a storm, and I have to say that it is a weird feeling. You can almost feel the electricity in the air. Quite freaky. I had the sudden urge to run, that I had to be somewhere, and spending any more time sightseeing makes someone angry with me, or hurt someone. So I did. Running a few steps, I launched myself into the air. I followed the path carefully but skipping the loops altogether. I don't even know why I was in such a hurry. I may act like an idiot, but that doesn't mean I'm ignorant. I like to know things and I realize a lot more than my friends give me credit for. It upsets me when they make fun of my intelligence. Wait, it doesn't upset me, it makes me angry. Does it make me a bad person to have thoughts of hurting my friends? My wife, even my son? I stopped my thoughts there, spying the end quickly approaching, and the planet I was supposed to go to above it. Small and green, I could actually see trees, a path and a house, but where was the atmosphere? The stratosphere, or any of the other spheres? Geez, nothing makes sense when you're dead. Wearily, I flew over to the planet, eyeing the small yellow dome and looking around for whoever or whatever I was supposed to do here. I soon heard shuffling from within the house, then a crash, then swearing at someone named Bubbles, then a small blue bug-like man stomped out, grumbling under his breath. Then he caught sight of me. Ah, you must be Goku. You're a little late, but that doesn't matter. Well, what are you standing there for? Follow me and I'll explain what I want you to do. What a strange combination he is. The appearance of a man-bug, a voice that I could only reference to a pig if one could talk, the grace of an elephant, and I'll bet anything that he is as stubborn as a mule. It's like some escapee from a science lab, where they take bad qualities out of animals and mix them together in a human body. Despite my thoughts, I still followed him silently, although quietly growing agitated at being left out of some important information, even when it concerns me. Lucky for the thing in front of me, he started explaining things. Well, let's get started. My name is King Kai, this is my planet. No need to introduce yourself, we know all about you, that's what made us choose you to help. What, do you want me to fight something for you? And where are we? The big pink guy didn't tell me anything apart from how to get here. I inwardly winced at how rude I was. I hoped he didn't get the wrong impression. But I don't think he noticed. I guess you could call this heaven, but it isn't really. You, and many before you, have come down Snake Way to train. This is a spot where warriors with good hearts improve their skills because somehow or another, they will return to the living to fight an evil. It sounds confusing, so I didn't ask him to elaborate. And no, we don't want you to fight anything. You heard your brother's warning. 2 others are coming to Earth in a year to avenge him and grab the Dragon Balls, so therefore, you will be training. But first, we need you to do something really special. He paused, as if to add dramatic affect. There is a boy, a couple years younger than you, and he really needs help. Okay, so where is he? What kinda help does he need? Maybe. Help was the wrong word to use. He probably needs more support. Then, help, knowing that made me relax a little, but this boy is going through tough times. Actually, his whole life has been one tough time after another, and it's finally started to wear him down. Goku, a pause, we need you to be a sort of guardian for this kid. But because you're dead and he isn't, you'll be more like a guardian angel. I was gaping at him now. A guardian angel. I can remember Chi-Chi telling Gohan that every time he was alone or in trouble, his guardian angel would look after him. Wasn't just a fantasy for kids. Well, I guess I thought wrong. Sure, if it can help someone in their life, I'll gladly help. I gave him my grin, and followed him into a little shed that I hadn't noticed before. Just before we walked in, King Kai held up his hand to stop me. I must explain the rules before we go any further. I gave him a nod. Firstly, no one can see, hear or feel you. The only exception is your charge, although he can't see or feel you either. If you are touching him, he will be able to hear you. You can enter his dreams at any time, but you'll be stuck there until he awakens. He can see and feel you in his dreams, but you'll be nothing more than a light to him. I've read your profile, and I know what you're like. You'll see things happen to the kid that you'll want to stop, but you need to remember that you can't do anything except talk to him. Do you understand? I gave him a serious nod and went in the shed. I have no idea what to expect from this kid. He is what, 8, 19, 20, Cammy. He is barely out of puberty and already his life bad enough to require someone looking over him. Poor kid. The Bug King walked to a shelf and picked up a jar of bubbling green liquid. It was like mucus and slime and boogers all mixed together with a dash of bug guts. I fleetingly wondered if he had killed his family or friends, but I quickly shook it out of my head. He headed the questionable substance and looked at me expectingly. Already knowing that I wasn't gonna enjoy the taste, I threw my head and swallowed it all, trying to avoid any of it getting on my tongue, although that was doomed to fail. The whole room suddenly started spinning and warping. King Kai's face became just a stretch of blue, then flew past me as if I was traveling at hyperspeed. I felt like I was falling and flying at the same time. I couldn't tell if I was standing up or lying down. Then it all went black. I was surrounded in black again, but not the type one woke up before. This type wasn't comforting. This black was cold, lonely and dangerously calm. I was half expecting something to jump out and attack, although my brain tried to ask how that could be done when I'm dead. I ignored it. To my immediate right, 2 glittering lights appear. I panicked. I was positive that they were hungry animal eyes. Once again, my smart-ass brain pointed out that I was dead, and even if I wasn't, I could still defeat it. But then, more appeared, ranging in size and distance, and I recognized them as stars. I was surrounded in them. I had a feeling that I was in deep space. Then it occurred to me that I was alone, that this was not the shed where King Kai gave me the questionably safe substance, and everything went all, for lack of a better word, trippy. King Kai, I called out, feeling like a bit of an idiot. Yes, Goku, I'm here. I quickly spun to my left and saw him there, floating next to me. Where is this boy that I'm supposed to look after? Can he survive in space? Meeting someone like that would be so cool. He chuckled a little, then shook his head. No, your charge is down in there. I caught sight of a huge ship, bigger than the one from Star Trek. How do I keep missing these things? We started our descent into the ship, going straight through the thick wall. We stopped in a hall. It was long and narrow. The color was grayish-white, which gave me the feeling of a hospital. I shivered at the thought of the torture devices in a normal Earth hospital. We landed and walked down the corridor. Strange alien creatures walked past us in no real hurry. Purple with horns, blue with tentacles, yellow with horns and tentacles. Whoa, that one only has one eye. I had to wonder what my kid looked like. Although I tried to tell myself that looks don't really matter, I still hoped for someone that looked a little normal. We came to a halt outside a door. There was nothing special about this door. It reached from the floor to a few inches below the ceiling. No door handle, so I'd say it was a swishy door, also giving the occupant an insecure feeling and little to no privacy. Once again passing through the door wall, I spotted a man, I'd say about 18 or 19, sitting on the bed, his head in his hands, covering his eyes. Although he was sitting down, I could tell he was about a head shorter than me. He had muscles, but they were more compact, making him look quite skinny. He wore a full-body, dark blue spandex suit with long sleeves and white gloves. His posture screamed pride, defiance and arrogance. Two things really struck me: his tall, black flame hair, and the dark brown tail resting behind him. So much like my own, Gohan's and even Raditsu's, I couldn't help but wonder if he was a part of the same race as us. Yes, he is a Saiyan, like you and your brother. It was like he read my mind. In fact, he is Vegeta, the Prince of Saiyans. He is the one you'll be looking after. My jaw must have slammed pretty hard into the floor because I couldn't seem to get it back up. A prince. A prince. The Saiyan no Oji needs help. Geez. What with choosing how to spend the royal budget or help him write a speech to address the masses next week? If this was their idea of suffering, then I have to wonder what do they class me and Chi-Chi as. I know what you're thinking, Goku. This boy is a prince in title only. He was taken from his home planet when he was 5 years old, around the same time you met Bulma and started your Dragon Ball hunt. This ship is owned by a vicious tyrant named Frieza, who rules quite a few galaxies and single planets. He runs something called the planet trade. What that means is that he sends warriors to planets, wipes out the dominate race and any other threat on that planet, and when they return, Frieza sells the planet to the highest bidder. Disobedience is not an option around here if you want to survive. That is something the prince found out very quickly. Vegeta's life has always been very hard. He is rebellious by nature and that doesn't sit well with Frieza, so he is always getting punished. But the other day, he found out that one of the only two people he could trust died on a mission. The man was the closest thing Vegeta ever had to a brother, and the one that is left, Nappa, is like his father. He considered them family. Saiyans aren't much liked on this ship, and they will use his brother's death against him. He is going to be pushed to his absolute limits and he'll need someone who will constantly be with him. I took another look at the person on the bed. Suddenly, he didn't seem so calm or regal. His shoulders held the slightest of shakes and his hands were rubbing his eyes slightly. I got a vision of just a scared little boy, trapped in a world where nothing makes sense and everything is out to get him. Behind us, the door swished open and in stepped a huge, bulking man, about 3 heads taller than Vegeta, not including the hair. The man himself was hairless, apart from a thin mustache on his upper lip and thick eyebrows. He saw through King Kai and I to the prince and approached him. He stood before Vegeta for an uncomfortable moment and then laid a tender hand on his shoulder. With a quiet nod from the prince, he was hoisted into thick, brawny, muscular arms and held tightly, the smaller's head burying into the shoulder in front of him and arms wrapping around the thick neck. I couldn't help but mentally frame this picture. They were both strong fighters, that was for sure, and to see them both being so intimate and dependent on one another really warmed my heart. Moments passed until Vegeta squirmed slightly, an obvious indication to be let down, and the man, whom I could only presume to be Nappa, complied without a word. Another moment went before the air suddenly turned from mourning and comfort to business with an underlining of fear and tension. Vegeta, Nappa said in the deepest voice I think I've ever heard, Lord Frieza wishes to speak to you, immediately. The only emotion I could pick out in his voice was regret. I see, he must want the report from our lastest mission. That was a lie if I ever heard one, but it was well hidden behind a stoic face and stony features. Nappa seemed to see through the act as well, but said nothing about it. Of course, my prince, I'll have food prepared for you for when you return. It was kind of like watching actors in a movie. You couldn't help but wonder how long they had been practicing to get this good. Actually, I didn't really want to know. As Vegeta straightened out his attire for this Frieza guy, King Kai turned to me, with a hint of pity in his features. He is going to need help in the meeting with his lord, so you go with him, never leave his side. I have to go, but if you have any questions, picture me in your mind and call out my name, I'll answer as best I can. And with that, he slowly faded away, leaving me alone to do my work, whatever that was. With a nod of farewell to Nappa, we made our way down the many confusing halls. Eventually, we got to a hall that just screamed evil and madness, with no other doors except one, down the very end. Beside me, Vegeta shuddered, took a deep breath and walked towards the door as if his feet were made of lead. I found myself itching to grab him and scream at him not to go, to just run back to Nappa and stay there. But then I remembered what King Kai told me about this Frieza guy. Surely he would get 10 times worse if he were to run away. I just had to steady myself and go with it. We got to the door all too quickly, and with another deep sigh, Vegeta knocked, just once and very loudly to announce his presence, but you could tell he was hoping the tyrant had to go somewhere suddenly. No such luck, as a feminine voice purred out to him, "Come in, Vegeta." We entered the room, which was about twice the size of Vegeta's. It also seemed to be a throne room of a sort. Perched on the throne was whom I presumed to be Frieza. He was a strange combination of horns, pink and purple with menacing red eyes and a very womanish voice. The smirk he wore spoke of unimaginable tortures he had cast upon others, and what he intended to do to Vegeta. Just seeing that grin made me want to run, and I felt a little selfish for being thankful that he couldn't see me. "Tell me, Vegeta," the silky tone cut through my thoughts, "what do you think went wrong on your last mission?" I could almost hear Vegeta's thoughts run around in panic in his head, looking for the answer. Unfortunately, Frieza quickly lost his patience. His long thick tail crashed into the side of Vegeta's head and sent him to the ground. The smirk was gone from his face. "I'll tell you what went wrong, you stupid monkey," he sneered. "You and that other blockhead blew up the planet. The planet had good technology and a vast amount of iron ore, and you two went and blew it up, and worst yet, I'm still waiting for your excuse for it." If I could actually see his ears, I'm sure there'd be smoke coming out. "We saw fit to blow up the planet as a majority of the inhabitants had been pre-warned of an attack and had escaped already. We were only aware of your want of their technology, so we took as much as we could and disposed of what was left." I could see him cringe, expecting another attack from his new position of kneeling in front of the bastard. The face quickly regrew the grin as he knelt down and cupped Vegeta's chin, forcing him to face him. "I suppose you were a little misinformed. But, after so many years of serving me, I would have thought you'd know my expectations like the back of your hand." Or mine. The hand swung with brutal force and sent Vegeta's head to the ground with a sickening crunch. Frieza quickly took advantage of the stars in the prince's vision and straddled his thighs. The silky voice dropped to a deadly whisper, "You should know well enough not to presume anything of me, except which position I want you in." Vegeta's dazed eyes snapped into focus at the last sentence and he began to struggle. His flying fists did nothing but amuse the tyrant slightly, until he grabbed both wrists in one hand and slammed them onto the floor with more crushing force than his head, as several small snapping sounds abruptly halted any protests. The fiend's fingers suddenly turned into claws and he raked both hands down the front of Vegeta's bodysuit, creating deep gouges and drawing out small whimpers from the man underneath. The OG struggled fruitlessly against his attacker, looking a lot like a frightened zebra that had just been taken down by a lion. A fierce blow to his stomach winded him, giving the monster enough time to remove the ribbons of material that once covered the small body. My stomach churned in disgust at what was happening. I almost felt like sobbing with knowing that I couldn't do a thing to stop or help. When Vegeta was turned on his stomach, I had enough and did the only thing I actually could do. I reached out to him. "Vegeta!" I almost screamed at him. His onyx eyes snapped open and darted around the room, looking for me. "No, you can't see me, just talk through your mind." The aroma from this horrific deed was so thick I could almost see it in the air. Unconsciously, my hand started stroking Vegeta's head, as if he could feel it. "I see, can't he?" stopped and let out a silent scream. I could feel it rock the ship to its foundations. "Yes, you can. Just focus on my voice. Don't think about anything else except what I'm saying." I vaguely wondered where all these words were coming from, surely nowhere in my mind. His eyes still scanned the room, searching for me. "I'll tell you later. But right now, think about your home planet. Tell me about your favorite food, your favorite place, the sights, the smells, anything." A few tense seconds later, his eyes finally shut and I felt his mind drift into pleasant memories. I almost smiled, until Frieza screamed his release to the stars while clawing up the back of Vegeta's thighs. With a grunt of satisfaction, he climbed of Vegeta's unmoving body and looked distastefully at all the blood surrounding them both, as if Vegeta just decided to come into the room and bleed everywhere. I removed my hand from the spiky mass of hair when I felt his brain sink into unconsciousness and stare at it, bringing the other one up almost as if to compare them. Never in my life had these hands ever failed me. Whether it was launching a devastating Kamehameha wave or cradling my son just months after he was born. These hands held strength and power that protected my friends and family, hell, even total strangers time and time again. But the one time I failed, the one time these appendages were completely useless to me, was for the limp figure being carted away from the room. Who knows what kind of damage, both physical and mental, he could have sustained from this, and I couldn't do a thing. The thing that really tore me up was that this man, no, this boy, of whom had barely reached maturity, had obviously had this happen to him before. My mind couldn't help but picture a grown-up Gohan as this position. I followed along numbly behind a pretty boy, with long, braided, green hair and pale blue skin, of whom was carrying Vegeta down identical whitewashed halls towards what I hoped to be a medical center or something similar, but, judging by the cruelty I have just seen, I wouldn't be surprised if he was just being returned to his room. To my great relief, we came to a room that was, if it was even possible, more sterile than the rest of the ship, with humanoids in white coats with clipboards and small tanks lined the wall to my left. Not a word was spoken. Vegeta was, for lack of a better word, dumped on a steel table, while the man who carried him left, muttering about getting the blood out of his hair. They very briefly examined him, writing notes in an alien language, and set him up in an unoccupied tank, which almost instantly filled with liquid. The doctor walked away shaking his head. Obviously Vegeta came here a lot. I felt my stomach churn and bile rise up in my throat as the impact of the event finally hit me. I had just witnessed the most vile act of sadism I could ever think of. The bastard alien tyrant needed to be shot. Several times. Why couldn't Vegeta fight back? Why am I even here? Why couldn't I just have died and haunt some mansion or something? Why am I always the one stuck cleaning up everyone's shit after they leave? My eye caught the tiniest of twitches from the prince's body. No, that wasn't fair. It wasn't his fault. He wasn't responsible for the crimes against him. He was barely an adult. Where were his parents? Surely they would have searched for him, especially if he was a prince. But what if my blood boiled at the thought of his parents handing him over to this madness? My eyes unconsciously swept his body, absently noting skin repairing itself at a much slower rate than a senzu would. This kid needed help and support, that was true, but how could I be either? After living in relative peace all my life and having fun with friends, how could I possibly offer any advice to something I'd only ever, rarely, heard on the news? Could I actually help him when the time called for it? Confused black eyes fluttered open as the clear liquid drained from the tank. The glass door slid open and doctors hurried to remove the various sensors from his body, as if afraid he'll hurt them, or run. I watched as he took shaky steps into the room only to fall straight into two thick arms, reminding me of Gohan's first steps. Vegeta tried to blink away the dazed look in his eyes and strained with obvious effort to lift an arm up and grip the muscular bicep of the much larger Saiyan, while Nappa conversed with a doctor in an alien language. With a nod from both parties, Vegeta was hauled away by Nappa with myself trailing behind. The prince had spent a full day, by the ship's clocks, in the tank which I presumed to be a rejuvenation tank, which gave me plenty of time to think, although I was mostly just repeating my earlier thoughts or remembering my ignorant days with Bulma, Krillin, Yamcha and Master Roshi. If Bulma were here, she'd know what to do. She's so smart that she would have come up with a way for me to stop Frieza before he could touch my prince, or at least give Vegeta better advice than, think about your favorite memories. I suck. Aliens passing the two Saiyans either ignored them, in other words, purposely bumping shoulders or making cruel comments about them as if they weren't there, or stopped to try and rile them into a fight, but they seemed to have thick skin. Probably because one is half if not fully asleep and the other probably wouldn't care unless a physical attack was committed against his prince. Luckily, they made it back with no such incident. Nappa carefully laid him out on the bed he had been sitting on when I first came with King Kai and pulled the covers over him, creating a picture of family when a light kiss was planted on the OG's forehead. With one last lingering gaze of concern, Nappa left the room. I hoped it was to go beat up the maniac who did this, but I knew it wasn't. Turning back to Vegeta, I had to chuckle at the look of him being swallowed up by the thick pillows and heavy Duna, but it died in my throat when he tossed around in an obvious nightmare. Soft whimpers escaped him and sweat started to gather on his forehead as he began to tangle in his sheets, leaving no question as to what he was dreaming of. Even in his dreams the tyrant attacks him. Remembering King Kai's words, I floated. Well, I moved over to his side somehow, and touched his forehead, feeling the heavy weight of sleep within his mind. I plunged into the deepest part, something telling me that that was the nightmare I was looking for. Within the space of a blink, I was surrounded in black yet again, but a faint light trail under my feet guided me to a scene not unlike the previous one and definitely not any less disgusting. My chest rumbled in a growl and I shot forward without really thinking, smiling when my fist met the asshole's head with a satisfying crack. Frieza flew away from my prince and disappeared within the dark mist, and I absently noted the lack of throb in my knuckles that usually came with a successful punch. Still slightly tense in waiting to see if he would come back at full force, I turned to look at Vegeta, who had backpedaled away from me a bit and curled his legs to his chest in a protective manner. Who? Shocked, I guess, that someone had actually answered his cries for help. I was the one who spoke to you in your mind before you lost consciousness. I didn't really want to say how he lost consciousness. His eyes widened a little. I thought that was just my mind finally sinking into insanity. A light dash of pink spread across his nose. I couldn't help a small chuckle. No, that was me. I'm Goku. I'm going to be floating around for a while. Why? He cut me off. Well, I'm here to help, I guess, is the simplest ways of putting it. While I can't help you physically, I'll stop you from going insane with no one to talk to. He eyed my form as best he could. Why can't I see you properly? How can I be sure that this isn't a trick from Frieza? A low growl escaped me at the thought of ever working for that beast. I'm not sure how I can prove it to you, because I'm sure just words won't be enough to prove that I'm not. His eyes went downcast for a moment, before looking back up to me. Well, what race are you? I felt myself grin. Surely he would trust his own kind. I am a Saiyan, my prince with a light bow. I could imagine my childhood tale swaying behind me. Hopefully, Vegeta could too. His eyes widened considerably before narrowing suspiciously. Myanyo, Helrid Min Keto Frieza Dalaha. The words, gibberish to a normal person, somehow made sense to me. Yon, Akaliu Xhu lift. I practically yelled at him for accusing me of being Frieza's brown noser. A crooked smile formed on his lips at my response. I hoped that meant it was a good response. Only a Saiyan would call Frieza a Yon. I believe who you say you are. But Goku isn't a Saiyan name. I was about to answer that my estranged brother kept calling me a carrot, when a whisper echoed through my head, something telling me not to reveal information about my brother or my past. Goku is my nickname, used by all my friends. I want us to be friends, so I want you to call me it too. Was it just me or did that seem pretty lame? Apparently he thought so too, as he looked like he was gonna snort at me, but instead, a small smile crept across his face, seemingly lighting up the dark dream. My next words came out before I really thought about them. I want to learn more about you, Vegeta. I want you to feel that you can tell me anything you want to. Maybe I should have been a writer for one of those crappy romance novels that Chi-Chi likes to read and base our marriage on instead of a fighter. Ignoring the strange look he gave me, I took his hand, tiny in comparison to my own, and pulled him into a comforting hug. I almost jerked back in surprise when I felt a dampness on my chest, but knowing that he needed it, I stood still and he let it all out. All his years of hardship for nothing poured out of him as we stood. The darkness to my right shifted. I tensed, expecting an enemy to attack, when dawn seemed to break over the horizon of his mind. I felt the weight on my chest become lighter, and in a panic, I tried to hold on to him, only to be forced back at an incredible speed. The empty-looking bedroom blurred past as I seemed to be launched from his mind at a high speed. I regained my footing just before any normal people would have knocked themselves out on the wall, and looked up in time to see my prince shoot up in bed, panting with tears streaming down his face. Hurriedly wiping them away, he tried to shake his head of something, a slight pout forming on his beautiful face. I approached him, but froze when I heard him whisper, "Goku." My heart leapt at the thought of him remembering me in the dream, although I'm not sure why. Shaking my head, I reached to touch his forehead to respond. "Yes, Vegeta, I'm here." The breath I didn't notice him holding was realized and a small smirk curved his lips. "How long will you be here, Goku?" I could hear slight worry in his voice. Surely he didn't trust me so quickly, but the thought of that he did sped up my heart. "Whenever you need someone to talk to, Whenever you want someone to listen, whenever you want your nightmares to end, I be here for all that, and whatever else you want. The smile grew, and so did my own. I'm not really sure if time passed quickly or not. It's kinda hard to tell when there is no sun, only bells that ring after about 8 hours of sleep. I'm almost sad to say that I got used to life on this ship, although I didn't live it at all. Vegeta was only called back to Frieza's quarters twice since I've come, thanked Kami, and apart from the occasional public groping by a pretty boy with shaggy white hair, he and Nappa were usually left alone. That description made it seem almost livable around here, almost comfortable. Okay, so maybe I'm not the best at describing things, who cares? I'm a fighter, it doesn't matter whether I'm good at it or not. Vegeta has had a nightmare almost every night. It's always the same thing, but not always the same circumstances. Sometimes it's clearly a memory, making it harder to reach him in time, because I wasn't originally there. Sometimes it's something his traumatized mind has come up with, what he thinks will happen in the near future, or distorted memories of near misses for him. They weren't always Frieza, high-ranking aliens, a fat, pink blob, even a group of them, led by a tall purple man with horns, have all had their turn with my prince, several times judging by his memories. None came with the kindness that he deserved. But some nights, such as tonight, he just sits and waits in a dreamless sleep for me to appear. Vegeta, he turns and smiles. He never smiles like that when he is awake, except once to Nappa when he finally admitted out loud that Vegeta was stronger than him. How are you feeling after the little incident? One of the pluses of being dead is that nobody can see you. It came in real handy earlier when Vegeta was cornered by a drunk, but strong officer. I simply let it slip that the guy's left side was unguarded, and with a well-aimed kick, he was out of there quicker than a rabbit from a hungry wolf. I'm fine, Goku. I'm just a little angry that you hadn't shown up earlier in my life. A lot of fights could have been avoided if you had. Hearing what I hoped to be teasing in his voice, I smiled slightly and sat next to him. Yeah, well, I am a pretty handy guy to have around, I laughed. He chuckled a bit and we sat in a relaxed silence, staring into the nothingness around us. I once asked him why he didn't imagine that he was back on Vegeta, so he could pretend that he was in a better place, if only for a few hours. He told me, blushing slightly, that he had only been allowed to leave the palace grounds a few times before he left, and that the palace itself wasn't the best place to raise a growing boy. I didn't ask him to elaborate. We sat in silence for what seemed like hours, just staring into the misty darkness ahead of us. We never usually talked unless I sensed that something was eating him up inside, or something discussion-worthy had happened that day. That's just the way his personality was, never speaking unless it was important to do so. It made me a little uncomfortable at first, having been surrounded by noise for a majority of my life, but I really began to appreciate the moments that nothing needed to be said, that the world seemed almost peaceful. A little too soon, in my opinion, a light began to rise over the horizon. But before I was shot back at a frightening speed, I quickly grabbed his shoulder and gave it a firm squeeze. It was sort of a comforting gesture, to tell him that I was always there, even if he couldn't see me. The room blurred past me as I struggled to steady myself. No matter how many times it happened, I still thought that one day I'm actually gonna hit the wall and die again. Regaining my footing after I went straight through the wall and a very bulky, lime green, pimply alien, I re-entered the room and saw Vegeta grabbing a clean dark blue spandex suit and walk into the adjoining bathroom. I didn't follow. My OG has a very strange morning routine. He spent about 15 minutes in his room, preparing himself for whatever would throw itself at him that day. It usually started with a thorough inspection of his armor, followed by a brief scrub down, and then, what I once called meditation, till I listened in. It was actually just him playing a constant mantra through his mind, reminding himself of who he was and that he was untouchable. Well, I have to say, this weird little quirk of his really helps him get through, unless, of course, he has to meet with Frieza. But when he doesn't, it's his sheer willpower and determination that helps him cope. Exactly 15 minutes later, he exited the bathroom, raking a hand through his damp locks that sagged slightly. It was kinda cute. He looked around slightly. I always got the feeling that he was looking for me, wondering if today would be the day he could finally see me, or that I had left him to face the horrors alone. The fragile trust he had in me never ceased to amaze me. It was hesitant, Obviously from being let down too many times before, but it's almost as if his pride won't let him not trust me, like it was making chicken noises whenever he had even a little bit of doubt. Rolling his shoulders, he made for the door, but then I felt something clawing the back of my head, feelings and instincts telling me to stop him like they did every time Frieza, that meant danger was afoot. About 6 feet from the door, it swished open suddenly and Nappa came barreling in, only narrowly missing knocking Vegeta to the ground. Nappa, what the hell? Forgive me Prince Vegeta, but I just got word of a fight in the cafeteria and thought you'd want to see it. A slight tinge of embarrassment covered his cheeks. Despite Nappa's obvious excitement, and the small smirk on Vegeta's face, I knew this was where the bad feeling was coming from. Vegeta, don't go, stay here with Nappa, I pleaded. He blinked hard for a moment, probably still not used to having a voice in his head, but then turned to Nappa. I don't personally care what two stupid idiots do to pass the time. Once Frieza gets there, they're as good as dead. Nappa's grin faded into a small frown, probably wondering when the prince had outgrown him. Now get that ridiculous look off your face. I'm sure you haven't meditated since the last time I forced you to. So therefore, we are going to do it now, and any complaints will be ignored. So get to it. The large man put on a blank mask and they both made themselves comfy within the room, and a few minutes later, I felt Vegeta's mind drift into his subconscious. The last time Nappa had been forced to do this was when Vegeta made a comment that he was all brawn and no brains. Nappa tried to defend himself by speaking all these different languages, but when Vegeta gave him a battle scenario, every tactic was the same: charge in head first and hope he doesn't get killed. Thus why he gave in so easily this time. It can't have been more than a few hours later that the door opened and in stepped the green-haired, blue-skinned man, Zarbon, and a wimpy-looking man who immediately went to the console next to the door and started typing. Zarbon's gaze switched between the two meditating Saiyans, formed two key balls and threw them next to their heads. They both awoke in a snap and both bodies lurched forward violently. Vegeta managed to catch himself, but Nappa ended up face down on the floor. With anger written all over his face, Vegeta turned to regard Zarbon while inwardly screaming to me. What the hell does this pretty boy want? //. Why hello there monkey brat, so nice of you join us. I'm sure you heard of the little brawl in the cafeteria. This man was a natural charmer, he probably even had Frieza under his spell a little. I heard of it, but I wasn't there. We haven't left this room for hours. Oh, we'll soon find out about that. I must admit, it was quite a vicious fight. A few onlookers died because of it, and funnily enough, both Master Frieza's first thought and my own was that you had somehow caused it. Ship life too boring for you, Vegeta's upper lip curled in a snarl. Fuck off, I told you we haven't been anywhere near the cafeteria since resting hours were over. Zarbon's own lips lifted as he grabbed the collar of spandex and lifted my prince to meet his golden gaze. If there's one thing I hate more than Saiyans, it's liars. So when the two mix, I don't believe that I'll be able to restrain myself from killing you and forcing the oaf behind you to eat your remains. Ebony and Gold fought in a vicious stare down while Nappa and myself just watched. There wasn't much I could do in situations like this, as much as I hate to admit it. The last time Vegeta was forced to see the tyrant, I went insane for a moment or two, punching and kicking desperately to make him stop. I'll tell ya, it hurts so bad when you calm down and see you have done shit all and that's all you could ever do. The angry battle was over with a timid cough from the small man that had come in with Zarbon. Sir. The data says that what he is saying is true. Nappa entered just after the fight began with, residue from training room 6, and Prince Vegeta had only left this room to go to the bathroom, so, yeah. The pretty boy's glare focused on the clearly terrified man for a second, before dropping Vegeta with a snort of disdain. He spun around and stalked towards the door, leaving the visibly shaking guy to follow. Before the door shut, he left some parting words for the smaller Saiyan. Watch yourself, monkey shit. You've been trying my patience for a while now, and as soon as Frieza turns his back, I'll show exactly why you'll never be able to defeat me. Then I'll hand you over to the grunts, and let them do what they have always wanted to do to you. The door closed completely. Both of the remaining men slumped their shoulders and sigh at the same time, relief passing over their faces for a second before turning neutral again. Nappa stood up and gestured the door with his head, and Vegeta dismissed him with a wave. After Nappa left, he got up and paced a little, looking thoughtful about something while at the same time, flashes of emotion passed through his eyes. Shock, anger, contemplation, confusion, hope, anger, sadness, anger, anger. I managed to gather that he was a bit annoyed at something. How did you know about that? Okay, I guess he was angry at me. I didn't know that it was going to happen. I just got this feeling, the same type of feeling I get whenever you have to go see Frieza and knew something bad was going to happen. //. He ran a gloved hand through his hair, then replied, what do you mean you got a feeling? //. Exactly what I said. When Nappa told you about the fight, I got bad vibes. Every time I've gotten them so far has meant that something bad has happened. So instead of waiting to see what would happen, I stopped it before it did. //. His brows furrowed and he crossed his arms over his chest. I got the feeling he didn't quite believe me. He looked like he was gonna answer me, but then shook his head and began to walk out the room. This time there was number 8-foot giant plowing into him. He sparred into the late evening, somehow, managing to skip all 3 all-important meals of the day. He has done it many times before, but it never ceases to bother me. If I skip one I can barely make it to the next one before an attempt to eat the grass outside my home. Wait, he didn't actually spar. Vegeta tends to get a bit vicious while sparring and anyone weaker wouldn't stand a chance. They learned this long ago and automatically leave the arena when he walks in. And I know that he loves that effect. So in actual fact, he trained, by himself, with me giving him little pointers to improve something. I could tell he hated me doing it. At first he would snap and snarl at me, often physically, to shut the hell up, but I also noticed, while swelling up in pride, that he did take my advice a lot of the time, even if it was on a subconscious level. He headed for a small built-in closet and grabbed a towel from the middle of the towering pile, quickly shutting the door before it could fall. Dabbing his forehead with his towel, he started some warming down exercises so his muscles didn't tighten painfully later on. I loved watching him do katas. It always looked like he was dancing to his own beat that was playing inside his head. I think all he did was let momentum determine which way his body swayed. His eyes were closed and his whole body relaxed as he let everything flow. I couldn't help but stare in wonder at him. His elegant figure slid through the air like water, the drops of sweat dripping from his sharp features onto the towel around his neck added to the effect. To my utter disappointment, a stupid little furry creature, about half Vegeta's size with a little pig's nose, white fur and small beady eyes, hesitantly stepped in, rubbing his hands together nervously as he approached. Immediately, all the graceful movements of Vegeta's small body ceased and he regarded the alien things with a freezing glare and knuckles twitching ever so slightly, wanting to use this thing as a new punching bag. Prince Vegeta, sir, it stuttered, Master Frieza has requested your presence and Nappa's in the bridge immediately. And with that, the rejected Muppet fled faster than was once thought possible for a creature his size. With a snort of disdain, my prince pulled the towel from around his neck and carelessly tossed it behind him, and after mutter a few choice words about the insane tyrant, left. He navigated through the endless, identical halls expertly, carefully avoiding usually populated areas and especially the cafeteria by taking longer routes, until he got to the bridge. You could tell that as soon as the door swished open, that every being in there except Frieza obviously had to fight to stop from lifting their head in an automatic response to see who was entering. Lord Frieza, Vegeta gave as an acknowledgement and question as he stood before him. Ah, Vegeta, Zarbon informs me that you were indeed innocent of any suspicions concerning your involvement in the fight earlier. I am glad, otherwise, I would have had to postpone your next mission. As Frieza droned on, my hearing became more and more fuzzy, like trying to hear something while underwater. I slapped the side of my head a few times, trying to dislodge any gunk in there, but it did no good. My stomach felt something for the first time in almost a year, but I would rather have gone without than have the painful churning currently twisting my insides. My body felt like it was being pulled by something far more powerful than whatever hauled me out of Vegeta's dreams every night. Panicking, I reached out to my prince. Vegeta, //. He visibly flinched and looked around wildly for Meet Goku. Wah, something wrong Vegeta? The tyrant's smooth voice recaptured his attention. No Lord Frieza, I just thought I heard something. Frieza gave him a small look, then seemed to buy it as he kept talking about whatever he was before. I was fading, I could feel it, could feel my body slip in and out of this place. But I couldn't leave yet, I needed to say something to Vegeta. I couldn't just leave after being with him for so long without a word. It would make me no better than those people on the soap operas back home. One last time, I contacted him. Goodbye Vegeta, my prince. // I felt his shock. What? Goodbye. It went black. Before I could return to full consciousness, my body painfully registered the hardwood floor I was lying face down on. I opened my eyes hesitantly, knowing full well what it was like to shoot them open and have the stupid sun attempt to burn them out of my sockets. But that didn't happen this time. This time, I was met with a soft, evening sun that was seeping through the poorly made wooden walls and roof around us. Us. I saw his little black booties first, then his black gown thing with the symbol on it, then his fat little blue face, then his antenna hat thing. I took in the sight of King Kai. He snorted in laughter at my dazed expression and beckoned me to follow him, which I did, once my legs got used to the idea of having to support my own weight once again. Once I caught up with him, I opened my mouth to demand why he took me away from Vegeta at what could have been a very crucial point, when he beat me to the punch. There was nothing more you could do for him the way you were. I nodded my head sadly. I can't expect to really help him if I can't protect him from physical threats. The bug man in front of me snorted again, but this time he seemed more impatient. Cheer up now. If you remember, 2 aliens are coming to Earth in a couple of months to grab the Dragon Balls and kill everyone you love. Are you gonna waste your time here moping or training to beat them? Yeah, I wholeheartedly agreed to his little pep talk. Attempting to put Vegeta at the back of my head for the time being and listen to King Kai prattle on about catching his pet monkey, I tried to focus entirely on saving my loved ones, with a thought that came about really to spare their feelings, then voicing my own mind. Babies. Those alien fuckers are going down. With a slightly sadistic grin, I launched into my training. With an unnecessary run-up, I launched myself towards Snake Way, stopping for a minute to wave goodbye to my new friends, King Kai, Bubbles and Gregory. It's hard to believe that a year ago today, I was slain by my estranged brother, and that right now, 2 of his little friends are currently terrorizing my friends and family, pretty much asking me to come and kick their asses. The training King Kai put me through only lasted a couple of months. He even admitted to me that I was a lot stronger than he thought and that it would have normally taken at least a year to complete, and he was worried I'd be sent back unprepared. After only just missing the top of the loop-de-loop of Snake Way, I decided to focus on the looming battle, and not let my thoughts stray to a certain prince of whom I haven't stopped thinking about since I left him with Frieza. Speaking of which, King Kai refused to establish a connection with him so I could see if he was alright. I know he could have, having done so with my family not so long ago, but he kept telling me some bullshit excuse that he was out of reach. I really hope he didn't expect me to believe that. King Enma's house loomed in the distance and I sped up a little, hoping to get to this upcoming battle sooner, just itching to do something with my hands, like punch someone's head in. Racing through the door, I gave a quick wave to the giant god and trailed the long line of deceased spirits, till I reached the end and dove off the side, picking up speed in my descent to Earth. The clouds seemed to slap me in the face as I flew, but I didn't slow down. A familiar feeling of adrenaline and bloodlust washed over me, and like a thirsty man to water, I hungered for the comforting feeling of battle, as a year's worth of frustration made itself known just under the surface of my skin. The clouds parted as I saw Kami's lookout in front on me quickly grow bigger and bigger, until I had to do a barrel roll to avoid smashing into it. Speeding off to the right, I had a quick glance over my shoulder and saw Mr. Popo and Kami watching me and smiling in that knowing way they always do. Ignoring them, I raced towards where I felt random explosions of ki. I let out a huge sigh of relief when I picked up my son's ki. He is way too young to be doing anything other than play in the mud, and a smile tugged my lips when I felt Krillin's ki next to him, protecting him, like I knew he would. Shaking my head, I focused on the 2 signatures I couldn't identify. They were huge. Krillin and Gohan wouldn't have been able to hold up much longer against them, that's for sure. One stood out more than the other. I knew I'd have a rough time with that one. We're pretty evenly matched as far as I could tell. I growled inwardly and put on an extra burst of speed. Where was my usual cluster of friends? Yamcha, Tien and Chiatsu would never pass up the opportunity of a battle. Surely Piccolo was now one of the good guys after we battled my brother side by side, so shouldn't he be there? A clear answer filled my head, but I refused to acknowledge it without proof. Judging by the key residue, the battle hasn't been going on for very long. There was no way that they were that easy to kill. They're stronger than that, I know it. The dry terrain gradually changed under me, from solid ground to crumbling cliffs until I arrived at the battleground, full of craters and littered with debris. All four heads turned in my direction. I looked to my son and best friend to determine the damage they'd taken. They both seemed fine, a little battered and very dirty, but not as bad as they certainly should have been with enemies of this strength. I turned my head to look at said aliens and I spotted a man, I'd say about 18 or 19, standing with his arms crossed. Although he was a fair distance away from me, I could tell he was about a head shorter than me. He had muscles, but they were more compact, making him look quite skinny. He wore a full body, dark blue spandex suit with long sleeves and white gloves and bulky-looking armor. His posture screamed pride, defiance and arrogance. Two things really struck me: his tall, black flame hair, and the dark brown tail resting around his waist. A little ways in front of him was a slightly ruffled-looking huge, bulking man, about 3 heads taller than the other man, not including the hair. The man himself was hairless, apart from a thin mustache on his upper lip and thick eyebrows. My shoulders tensed up and my breath caught in my throat, almost sending me into a coughing fit. Vegeta, Nappa, it couldn't be them. No, this had to be some sort of trick. Both of them were back in the relative safety of Freysa's spaceship, not currently on my planet avenging their comrade. But it made sense. Why I was never told the identity of the one whom Vegeta grieved for. Why I never told Vegeta of my supposed real name or pretty much anything about my home. Daddy, my son brought me back to Earth and I stared at him. He looked so happy to see me, like I was his hero. What would happen if I told them I wouldn't be able to fight the 2 men I had gotten to know on a personal level over the past year? I looked back to Vegeta and slowly dropped from the sky, landing next to Krillin but not looking at him. Both of my allies started talking at once about what I'd missed so far, but I only heard snippets. Yamcha, Tien, Chiatsu, Piccolo, dead. My friends were dead for defending their own planet. A red haze drifted over my eyes as I stopped looking at Vegeta and stared at Nappa. Any previous thoughts about not harming him quickly being buried under a deep thirst for revenge. All evidence pointed to him being the one who killed them. He caught my enraged look and smirked cockily and said something in that deep voice of his. My arms twitched as I recognized some of his gestures to be an attempt to egg me on and make me angry enough to make a vital mistake. So I charged. I wanted him to feel pain. No, I wanted him to die for the damage he'd caused, for killing my friends. I wanted him to hurt for never helping Vegeta get away from Freysa, or risking his own life to take my prince's fate. The only reason I didn't was because of this annoying little voice in my head that told me to consider Vegeta. But that couldn't stop me from causing as much pain as possible to him. The fog over my eyes lifted as quickly as it came and I looked at Nappa and almost gasped at my handiwork. All he seemed to be was a bloody pile of bones, flesh and pain. Limbs were twisted in all the wrong directions, severe gashes were seen everywhere, but mostly on his upper body. His spandex was almost completely ripped off and exposed, quickly darkening bruises on both sides of his rib cage, and the way his one usable hand was clawing at his lower back, I'd say I caused some damage to his spine. I vaguely wondered if I had gone too far. That hand left his spine and reached out to where Vegeta was standing, yelling and screaming for help with tears lining his eyes, while my prince stood in barely disguised indecision. Having come a decision, he uncrossed his arms and slowly approached the mass of limbs and grabbed the outstretched hand firmly. What good is a crippled warrior? He started, his whole arm tensing as he heaved the heavy man into the sky. A sense of calm seemed to come over Nappa as he just shut his eyes and made no movement at all, letting himself soar into the sky. None. And with that, Vegeta let loose a powerful blast at his father figure and watched it incinerate him with strangely detached eyes. The 2 next to me looked on as well, with shock and disgust playing in their eyes. A part of me jumped for joy at seeing my friend's murderer being blasted into oblivion, but a greater part wondered how hard that must have been to do that to the one you'd considered your father for most of your life. He shook his head slightly, and slowly lowered his eyes from the last spot Nappa was seen to look at us. Well, it seems that you managed to defeat both of my minions, Kakarot. His face grew into a strained smirk. Unfortunately, I am not one to lose so easily. With that said, he squared his shoulders and slid into the defensive crouch that I had seen so many times. I stared for a moment. How could he pretend that killing Nappa just then was as easy as killing a flying that had been buzzing around your head all day? His body language gave away the grief he was trying to hide from me, the faint tremors, the forced impatient look on his face, the subtle clenching and unclenching of his fists. This was wrong. I lifted my own hands to vaguely match his. I needed to show him how wrong it was. We flew at each other, exchanging blows and quietly assessing each other, although I did have an advantage, with knowing half of his moves already. He finally got impatient with us just dancing around each other and struck me in the chest, the shock of it, not the power, sending me flying into a nearby cliff face. I ignored the gasps and encouraging shouts from my surviving friends and got totally focused with the battle, searching for weaknesses without really thinking about it. A pleased smirk found his face at his successful hit, but I launched back quickly, before he had a chance to gloat about it, which I knew he would do. I managed to get his jaw in my rush, but he was more prepared for the blow than I was and got me in the stomach in his descent. I stumbled back and narrowly avoided having my legs swept from under me. He got back up and clipped my shoulder with his fist, and I responded with sinking my foot into his stomach, sending him flying backwards with a small ki blast following. I raced towards the rock he crashed into, a plan forming in my mind. I saw him wince slightly as he extracted himself from the stone and quickly pinned him there with my forearm lightly, but firmly against his throat. His breath hitched slightly in shock, but when I didn't move he started to struggle in frustration. "What the hell do you think you're doing, Kakarot?" he roared. All his flailing about was slowly, but surely, loosening my grip on him. I needed to do something before I lost this moment, quick. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I decided that I should have worn him down more before attempting this. Just focus on my voice. Don't think about anything else except what I'm saying. The response was immediate. His whole body became rigid and he stopped breathing for a second, staring at me, into my eyes and soul at the same time. What? Why did you say that? What do you? He was cut off when we heard a shout from the sidelines. Goku, what's the matter, man? Why aren't you finishing him off? Krillin's shrill voice carried over the rubble to our ears. Gee, Goku. Vegeta mumbled. How can this be? No, I must be mistaken. He trailed off, getting softer with each word. All he needed was one extra push. Whenever you need someone to talk to, whenever you want someone to listen, whenever you want your nightmares to end, I'd be here for all that, and whatever else you want. I told you I'd be there for you, and now I'm here physically. Now I can make sure Frieza never touches you again, I stated firmly, fully intending on keeping my promise. His eyes widened impossibly, still not quite believing me but finding only truth in my words and actions. He stood shell-shocked, my prince gaping at me and myself, hoping that he found nothing in my expression to make him think I was lying. Distantly, I heard Gohan and Krillin talking to each other in confusion, wanting to approach but unsure if we were still fighting or not. Soon, Vegeta seemed to knock himself out of his stupor and glared up at me. If this is some kind of stupid, he began, but I quickly cut him off. This is no joke, no game. I'm the same man who started talking to you in your head when Frieza was, and the same one who came to you in your dreams every night afterwards. I'm the same guy who always gave you the little tips to improve your training that you always hated. It's me, I'm Goku, I finished almost tiredly. His eyes seemed to be wider than I'd ever thought possible. I just gave him 3 examples of what I'd done for him that no other would have known of. Surely he must believe me. We stared for a few minutes longer, then he lowered his eyes. I was startled to realize how vulnerable he looked right now. A gust of wind blew a small cloud of dust between us and I lifted my arm from where I held his throat to block any from entering my eyes. Now free, Vegeta made no attempt to escape to his space pod or a cheap attack at my son and best friend just over the ridge. I turned away from my prince for a second, hoping he caught the act of complete trust I was showing by turning my back to him, and looked over to see what they were doing. Gohan was clutching Krillin's arm, watching us in absolute confusion, while Krillin just had that stupid dumbfounded expression he gets when his brain can't seem to process what's going on, kinda like a robot short-circuiting with too much information. I gave them both a big goofy grin and waved happily to them, hoping to reassure them everything was fine, before turning back to Vegeta. He still had his eyes downcast with both arms hanging limply by his sides. He was a picture of tired defeat. His mouth opened and closed a few times, as if not knowing if he should say something, or that he's not sure how to put it. Finally, his fists clenched and his head shot up and our eyes met, his practically glowing in suppressed anger. "Why did you leave me?" he growled out. I have to admit, I didn't expect this question until after I explained everything about me dying and what I was sent to do with him. I had. After your hasty little goodbye, I got distracted enough to convince Frieza that I needed a lesson in paying attention. His voice rose with every word, then fell again. His eyes started to look a little glossy. You left me to deal with that alone. Overcome with anger, I grabbed his tense wrists and pulled him into my chest and held him tight, just like I did the first time I entered his dream. But this was the real thing, and this time, I can protect him from everything that comes his way. He squirmed a little before giving in to me. He felt almost like a dead weight on my chest. This wasn't like the first time I did it. He didn't give in to any silent tears or heart-wrenching sobs. Hell, he didn't even shudder or shake. He just stood there, leaning heavily on me while I let go of his wrists to hold around his waist. Having enough of the silence, I tried to coax an emotion out of him. This isn't going to be like before, when all I could do was talk to you. No, this time, I'm gonna protect you from everything, and if Frieza tries to get you back, I'll do to him what I've wanted to do since I first met him. I growled the last bit. I felt Vegeta shift a little and I looked down to meet his ebony gaze staring back at me intently. I want you to stay here on Earth with me. We'll train together and become stronger. Then, we'll beat that stupid lizard and then live free right here. He broke eye contact and stared off to the left. The wind blew again and he quickly buried his head into my chest to cover his eyes. The action was actually pretty cute, like a child's delighted face, or the way a puppy can make its eyes go impossibly large when they want some of the food you've been refusing to share for the past hour or so. I pulled out of my thoughts when I felt a light tug on my shirt. I looked down and saw a small frown crease his brow, as if trying to decide something important. Finally our eyes met and I saw a whole tsunami of suppressed feelings and thoughts, wanting to be voiced but not daring to be. I can't stay here, he whispered. Slightly shocked, I stupidly asked, why? You could tell he thought it was stupid too, and wanted to comment on it, but then chose not to. Well, I did order Nappa to kill 4 of your little friends not very long ago. He winced at Nappa's name. These earthlings will never accept me, not to mention Frieza will hunt me down and kill anyone in his way. If you are indeed Goku, then you should be able to picture exactly how he is going to kill you and how he is going to punish me for having hope in something. I clutched him tighter in determination. Frieza will not come near you again. The growling started before I could stop it. I didn't even know I could growl like an animal, till this moment. For some reason, my prince seemed to find comfort in it, relaxing his head onto my chest and closing his eyes. I smiled down at him, though he couldn't see it. Raising an arm up, I waved Gohan and Krillin over, still smiling to show everything was okay. Vegeta must have looked up to what I was doing, because suddenly he launched out of my grip and a couple of feet away. I frowned, but guessed he didn't want to appear weak in front of the people he was trying to kill not too long ago. They hesitantly flew over and landed close to me, Krillin constantly taking looks at my prince wearily, while Gohan kept his eyes on me, wanting to bolt into my arms for a well-deserved hug, but knowing he needed to be mature at the moment. Hugs can come later. Guys, this is Prince Vegeta, as if they didn't already know, and he is gonna stay here with us and train and… What? My friend screamed his interruption. He killed our friends and now you want him to stay. What if he goes after Bulma or Chi-Chi? They'd be defenseless against him. What if… I stopped him before he really got started. He's not going to be doing anything like that. I gave my prince a pointed look just to emphasize that claim. He'll be with me a lot of the time so I won't let him. Besides, once we wish the others back and he gains their forgiveness, there will really be no reason to hold any grudges. Krillin gave me an, "Are you stupid? Look, Goku, Piccolo is dead, the Dragon Balls are gone. We can't wish them back without Dragon Balls. Shit, I'd forgotten about that. Stupid Piccolo, why did he have to die?" But then I caught sight of Gohan in the corner of my eye. That's right, he died for my son's life, I'll always be grateful to him for that. I heard something being mumbled and turned to look at Vegeta, who I'd temporarily forgotten. What did you say, Vegeta? He sighed deeply and stopped staring out into the far left to meet my eyes. There are more Dragon Balls on planet Namek. He crossed his arms tensely as expecting an attack for his input. We all stared at him. How do you know that? As is our Raditsu was only I seemed to notice the stutter and pause there. Your little Namek friend saw fit to inform him about the Dragon Balls, with the intention of gloating, I believe. He did not realize that this device, he indicated the thing hanging over his right eye, not only senses one's ki level, but also acts as a communication device to keep in contact with your group and for emergency contact with Frieza. So, not only did Nappa and I hear it all, Frieza did as well. I had to interrupt there. Wait a second, doesn't that mean Frieza is listening right now? He just shook his head. No, I always cut off the communication links when we arrive on a planet and only open it back up if I really need to, which hasn't happened yet. I nodded in understanding. Sorry, keep going. He nodded back. After hearing about the balls, Frieza set his researchers to find out everything they could on them and soon found out about their origin on planet Namek. So he sent us out here for a mission and a little revenge while he steers a majority of the fleet towards Namek. Krillin looked a little fearful. And what exactly was your mission? For the first time, Vegeta looked away from me and towards my bald friend. Go to Earth, collect Dragon Balls, blow up the planet, then return to Frieza. I frowned. Were you actually gonna follow along with it? He turned back to me and shook his head. We were going to wish Raditsu back, then wish us all immortal to defeat Frieza, but we weren't sure what to do with the last wish. The previously silent Gohan spoke up here. But you only get one wish with the Dragon Balls. Were you going to stay for 3 years? Now he faced my son, frowning thoughtfully. Only one wish. The Namek Dragon Balls gives 3 wishes from the information we gathered. Well, I guess then we would have wished ourselves immortal, come back and wish for Raditsu when it was safe from Frieza. My son decided to speak again. Who is this Frieza guy you keep talking about with my dad? Before Vegeta could answer, I did. Frieza is a disgusting monster, and I'm going to destroy him with my bare hands for all the crimes he has committed. Everyone stared at me in shock. I guess for Krillin and Gohan it was because that was the most violent thing to ever come out of my mouth, ever, while for Vegeta I guess it's because he knows how strong Frieza is and heard the determination in my voice. Why, I mean, you my prince couldn't seem to put his words together. I felt bloodlust boil up in me with images of what exactly I will do to the tyrant with Vegeta watching off to the side, while occasionally joining in his payback. I have a feeling that some of my thoughts might have flashed on my face as he looked even more shocked than before. He will pay for all the things he has done to you, Vegeta. He has forfeited any living rights he had the first time he acted like that towards you, towards anybody. I closed my eyes quickly, taking a few calming breaths and hoping none of my deliciously gory thoughts were visible on my face. When I opened them again, I saw Krillin looking like he was about to wet himself if not already. My prince was giving me this strange pleased look and my son was looking at Vegeta. I shook my head a little, to get any debris out of my hair and turned to Gohan. Hey son, why haven't I gotten a welcome back hug yet? His head snapped away from Vegeta, and with a huge smile he leapt into my arms, screaming, Daddy, and his little arms coiling around my neck. I laughed loudly and spun us both around, loving the squeals of joy coming from him and hating that I hadn't heard them in a whole year. Stopping before I got too dizzy and made us both fall to the ground, I settled for just clutching him tighter and sighing with content. A hand fell on my shoulder, and I looked at Krillin who let a wide grin stretch his face, both of them letting the seriousness of the situation go for a minute to welcome me back. I led my son down, still smiling at both of them and holding Gohan's hand, while Krillin removed his. Vegeta stood off to the side, obviously uncomforted with the whole display, but I had a new aim to get him to open up to the caring feelings I'll be showering upon him from now on. Even Gohan has taken a liking to him as far as I can tell from the looks he's been sending. Well guys, I think we need to head over to Bulma's to get some ideas about stopping that monster and getting our friends back. I get an enthusiastic, yeah, from Gohan and Krillin, and all 4 of us lifted into the air and sped towards Capsule Core. Out the corner of my eye, I saw Yariobi pull himself out of his self-made hidey hole and watch us leave. I led the gang towards Capsule Corp. Gohan and Krillin were talking excitedly behind me and Vegeta was bringing up the rear, obviously unsure of his place for the moment. We spotted the huge dome miles before we reached it, making us speed up just a little, like it was drawing us in with promises of friendly chatter and freshly baked cookies. The place was like a second home to all of us, with the Briefs as parents and Bulma as our smart-ass older sister. We landed on the front lawn neatly kept by Bunny and didn't even make it to the front door before I was tackle-hugged by the genius. Goku, welcome back. I missed you so much. Gohan, Krillin, thank God you're all okay. I wanted to come and watch so bad but Yamcha made me promise to stay here. She paused. Hey, where is everyone else? And who's the guy behind you? What happened to those alien guys? I scratched my head nervously. She's been around death just as much as the rest of us, probably not as much as Vegeta though, but how do I tell her that her boyfriend of 7 or so years died today? Well, it's great to see you Bulma, you've changed so much during the past year. Is that a new haircut? It looks great. She narrowed her eyes at me. Okay, remember, stalling Bulma might get me hurt. I heave a sigh. Okay, can we just go inside? I'll tell you everything if we go inside. She gave a curt nod and led us to the lounge room. She and Krillin took the armchairs while I sat on the couch with Gohan sitting on my right and Vegeta standing awkwardly in the doorway, his arms crossed over his chest. Everyone turned to me once they got settled, waiting for me to explain what's going on. To be honest, I don't think any of us really knew. I leaned back and scratched the side of my face, then decided to just get it over with. This, I gestured to my prince, is Vegeta. He was one of the aliens who came today to avenge my brother's death. That done, I watched her face twist as if sucking a lemon or she just stepped in dog poo. Krillin just looked away as if the wall was more interesting. There was one more alien who came today. He killed Tien, Chiatsu, Piccolo and Yamcha before I arrived. She sat stiffly, as if her spine was made out of steel. I'm pretty sure that it was the calm before the storm kind of thing, but I have to admit, I expected more tears. Her gaze slowly slid off me to Vegeta, who met her eyes unflinchingly, before coming back onto me, eyes narrowed so far they were almost closed. So, you're saying that his little friend murdered our friends, maybe a few hours ago? I gave a hesitant nod. And guessing from the fact that he's still alive, I'm guessing he was the stronger of the two. Again I nodded. She slouched forward, rubbing her temple wearily, before springing to her feet suddenly, her eyes ablaze in anger. And you thought it was okay to bring him here with my mother and father in the same building? We all sat frozen. While I was the target of her anger, I was sure the others felt like it was them. Bulma can have that effect on people. I know you like to save people, but how can you let scum like that live? Someone who came here to kill us all. Even if you weren't thinking about your friends, you should have been thinking about your son. He'll probably be one of the first people that monster goes after. And furthermore, hearing the word monster made adrenaline fill my body and I jumped to my feet. Shut up, Bulma. You have no idea what you're talking about. My outburst stunned her for about a second, then her face went pink in anger. Goku. Don't you? No, stop talking, Bulma. You need to listen to all the facts before you start judging him. Seeing her jaw clench, I took it as a sign to continue. Not once did I say that Vegeta had killed anyone, so don't call him names like that. Inwardly, I wondered when I'd developed such hatred towards the word monster. Secondly, since our battle stopped, he has not made one threatening move towards myself, Gohan, or Krillin, so take that as a sign of good character. I took a calming breath, remembering lessons from my first years with Chi-Chi. Yelling only prompts more yelling, with women at least. Finally, there's more to him being here than you realize. I'm not gonna tell you, it's not my story to tell, but he's not gonna go away just because you don't like it. She backed off a little, her blue eyes sweeping the room for a second before meeting mine again. Looks like he already has. My head snapped to the place I last saw him so hard that it hurt. It was empty. Shit. I looked over at Krillin where he too looked around the room for him. He must have been too absorbed with the argument to pay attention to my prince. Oh great, another alien has taken your son hostage. Probably gonna try and get you to join them again. Bulma's sneering voice brought my focus to the empty spot on the couch where he should be. Double shit. A bubble of panic rose up in my throat, but I fought it back down. No, I trust Vegeta. I know he wouldn't hurt Gohan, or kidnap him, or kill him, or torture him, or force him to do stuff he doesn't want to, or... No, stop it. I clenched my fists to stop these thoughts. Then I almost slapped myself when I realized that I should be locating their key signatures rather than stressing about the what-ifs. In doing so, I found their kiss on the veranda. Looking over at Krillin, and I saw that he did the same thing and was now charging towards them with Bulma hot on his heels. Triple shit. I burst out the doors a second behind them both, tense and ready to break up any fight that may have been going on. What we found were two equally confused fighters sitting on the steps leading to Mrs. Brief's vegetable garden, half turned to us with almost startled looks on their faces. Get away from him, you beast. Bulma's words made me tense even more, and Vegeta to frown. Why couldn't she have kept her mouth shut? I wasn't the only one who tensed. Krillin was also ready, it seems, to fight if Vegeta didn't let my son go. But, don't worry Gohan, we'll help you, just come over here. If he tries to stop you, me and your dad will get him. Krillin soothed. My boy looked at Vegeta, shrugged his shoulders and walked towards us, my prince doing nothing to stop him and him showing no fear towards my prince. Bulma reached out from where she stood behind Krillin and grabbed Gohan's arm, pulling him into a tight hug and backing off, obviously ready for a fight to start. I looked away from them and back at the other Saiyan, only to find him staring at me with narrowed hurt eyes. It was then that I realized just how my posture could be interpreted. Vegeta obviously thought that he was going to hurt my son. By now he was standing, his lean body coiled tightly, ready for a strike, while his eyes never left mine. I knew he was aware of everything Krillin was doing. Dad, Gohan called, making me turn to him. A burst of energy was felt a second later and I looked to see a rapidly disappearing dot. I got ready to follow him when my son called for me again. Dad, he wasn't doing anything to me. We were just talking. He even apologized for killing Piccolo. He wailed at me. We all stared at him in shock, before facing the last place we saw the prince. Shit. Finding Vegeta was not as easy as I thought it'd be. His ki was suppressed, meaning that he was not flying anymore, and was either walking or sitting and thinking up ways to kill me for hurting him. So all I could get right now was a general direction of where he was. There was also the fact that he had never been to this planet before, therefore didn't really have a spot where he would automatically go to be alone. So yeah, not an easy task I found myself in. Before, as I went to take off and begin my search, armed with the knowledge that he had been nothing less than polite to my son, when I saw Krillin stepping up next to me to help. I knew I could growl, but I never knew that it could sound so much like a pissed-off wolf. I turned to him, and consequently Bulma as well, because she was still standing behind him, and snarled at both of them, daring them to say something or to follow me, then flew off faster than I ever have before. Now that I think of it, I hope Gohan didn't think it was directed at him as well, with him still being nestled in Bulma's arms. I'll worry about that later. It felt like I flew for a long time. The sun had been hidden by clouds at some point, but this only barely registered to me. I was getting closer, I could feel it. Rather suddenly, I spotted a much darker shape amongst the vivid greens of the forest. It was a human-sized shape, albeit a small human, so I descended towards it, already knowing it was Vegeta and knowing that he knew I was there. He was sitting on a tree stump, legs folded up and arms wrapped around them. He was frowning and staring out into the area in front of him, even though there wasn't anything there. Vegeta, I needed him to respond to me, to understand that I trusted him. What is it, Kakarot? He asked after a moment of silence. I liked the way Kakarot sounded coming from him, easily and full of his accent. I didn't know how to broach the subject. Hell, I've never been in such an awkward position before, I've never needed to. It's much easier to pretend you have no idea what's going on and letting your friends do the talking. I even bet Chi-Chi will be the one to give Gohan the talk when he gets older. I look at the area where he was looking, trying to find something that will help me, but found nothing. Turning back to him, I saw that he had been staring at me, face holding no expression, in a way that scared me. Do you really trust me so little? He asked softly. I Did you really believe I would harm your son? Or that I would attack the people you care about without provocation? No, maybe I should just leave. It's better being in a place where I know I can't trust anyone, rather than be here constantly wondering if you'll turn on me the next minute. My arm shot out and grabbed his shoulder, pulling him up to face me. Don't you dare, I snarled, fingers tightening. Kaka, no, I interrupted, listen to me now. I want you to trust me, but ultimately it's your choice, and I'd rather die than let you return to the hell on that ship. I shook him a little, understand. He nodded quickly. Good. I pulled him into a hug, feeling him grab my shirt and relax. We needed to get back, before Krillin and Gohan came searching, but I was far too comfy where I was. I had a feeling he was too. I was sent to you, Vegeta. I confessed to him, I was dead, and someone knew you were suffering. So they sent me there to watch over you, until I could be wished back with the Dragon Balls. I'm just sorry that I couldn't do more to help you. I felt my prince snuggle just a little bit deeper into my arms, and I knew he understood and forgave me for it. I have the coordinates to Namek in my key sensor, he whispered. If you take me to a ship big enough for us, I can get us there to wish back your friends if you want. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. I simply clutched him tighter and told him that way. He nodded into my chest and I knew all was right between us for now. Our return back to Capsule Corps was met with a stony silence. I could see that Bulma wanted to comment, but instead gave me the cold shoulder for the next couple of hours. Gohan was the only one talking to us, and he quickly focused his attention on asking my prince questions about his home planet, and Vegeta happy, or at least seemingly happy, to answer them. Hours later, after a Saiyan-sized feast and a light but slightly tense conversation with Krillin, Kami paid us a visit. He showed us the ship that first brought him to Earth It was old, broken and covered in vines. Honestly, I never thought of how Kami got here. I guess I just assumed he had always been here. Bulma got to work right away at repairing the engine and all the computer systems and all the other stuff that I didn't understand. After yelling at Vegeta for the 10th time, yes, I counted, she reluctantly accepted his help, even though she would get annoyed after he would change something she had fixed. While the repairs were going on, we were trying to decide on who should come. After inspecting the ship, it was quickly discovered that there was only enough room for 4 people to comfortably live in it for any amount of time. Therefore, someone would be left behind. Bulma was the obvious choice to leave, because she has no fighting ability, but she quickly rebuffed that argument by claiming that someone needed to steer the ship, to make repairs, and to fix things if something went wrong with the ship. Gohan was the second choice to leave behind, being too young. However, he is the 3rd strongest fighter among us and the need for an adventure runs through his veins, just like it did mine when I was his age. I was going, for obvious reasons. That left Krillin and Vegeta to choose from, but I had already made the choice. One look from my best friend told me that he knew that he would be left behind, and that he was disappointed. He flew off before I could justify my choice, and I felt a little bad for feeling so relieved that there hadn't been a fight over it. With that figured out and the combined efforts of Bulma, her father and Vegeta, we were soon ready to go. To bypass the problems that Chi-Chi would cause, Gohan and I snuck home to pack our things at a time when we knew that she would be out shopping. I had been home a few times and got a solid whack to the head for worrying her and dying, leaving her to be a single parent, and stuff like that. To be honest, I couldn't really focus on her words past the pounding in my head. Even after all these years, she can still pack a hard punch. Therefore, I didn't even hint that I would be taking Gohan anywhere. Anyways, by the time she figures it out, I'll be in a different galaxy. What was left of our friends gathered in Capsule Corp's backyard to see us off. Nobody had told Chi-Chi yet, because she would most likely do very horrible things to the messenger. The ship was fully prepared, all fixed up and stuffed full of supplies. Mr. Briefs had already begun drawing up designs to create ones for the people of Earth, and he had actively encouraged Vegeta's help with it, much to Bulma's frustration. Everyone could see that there was going to be a rivalry between those two. The ship blasted off and it felt like nothing I had ever experienced before. I have been able to fly for almost all of my life, and yet I have never felt this crushing pressure which, as Bulma explained to us, was gravity fighting the power that is boosting us into space. I asked Vegeta if it was always like that, and he just shrugged, saying that he almost never goes to the same planet twice and each different one has its own different force of gravity. He said more, but to be honest, he lost me pretty quickly with his explanation. It may seem strange, after the rather hostile meeting, but everyone seemed to want to have my prince's attention. Bulma, despite the fact that she can hold a grudge, was always asking him questions on the types of machines and technology he has seen, and asking him to create blueprints for her. Gohan was really interested in the culture of the Saiyans. He seems to have accepted the fact that we are aliens better than I did. Despite this, I was the one that he spent the most time with. He was slowly growing comfortable with the others, but I am the one who has seen what he had to live with for most of his life, and I was the only one to understand. The ship had a small training area in which we sparred with each other, with Gohan sometimes joining in. As much as I know he hates to admit it, I know he was learning a lot from me, just like I was learning a lot from him. Although I had watched him fight for months, it is a completely different thing to actually fight and experience his technique. I tried to help him overcome Nappa's death. I say tried because I can't be sure of how much I actually helped. He told me that they had a pact. If one were to be hurt beyond immediate artificial help, that the other would mercifully kill them. He explained what happened to the last soldier in Frieza's army that returned to the ship mortally wounded, weeks of torture for being weak until they finally died from it. Plus, it was the Saiyan way to die in battle, anything less was seen as disgraceful. Even though he told me this, I could still remember his hesitance in going through with the promise, and there was still a great sadness in his eyes as he spoke. I, in turn, tried to justify my brother's death to him, not wanting him to think that I would kill my brother for no good reason. He nodded through my explanation, looking like he understood, but I have no idea of how close they were, and then decided that I will try and find any hidden resentment and make him forgive me. As we traveled through lots of different galaxies, we got quite a few distress signals from various planets. We wanted to land and help them out, but Vegeta stopped us each time, reminding us of our race against time, and he also explained that there are a lot of pirates in these poor galaxies. They would lure well-meaning ships to their planet and kill them or enslave them for their goods. We were all starting to get a bit testy with each other. Even I snapped at Bulma the other day because she kept complaining about Gohan leaving his books lying around. Finally, after 3 months of constant sailing, is that how you move through space, we finally made to planet Namek. It wasn't all that different to Earth, to be honest, apart from, the green people and the purple sky and the strange animals. To our relief, Frieza and his fleet had not arrived yet. We immediately got to work with scoping the area and making friends with a nearby village. When we first got to the village, all of the Nameks were there to meet us. Apparently they don't get very many off-world visitors, and therefore weren't really sure if we were hostile or not. It was at this point that I was pretty glad that we managed to convince Vegeta to change out of his battle armor in favor of a tight sleeveless shirt and loose training pants. Surely seeing him dressed like that would make these people weary of us, and he looks great in them. We met with their elder and explained what we knew, and he gave us a guide. Dend and Gohan were fast friends, and he was more than happy to show us around and direct us to the Dragon Balls, which were twice the size of the Earth ones. As we collected them, we put them in the capsules that Bulma brought with us, which we also discovered that it partially blocked their signal, so instead of a direct location, it only showed a vague direction. We hoped that that would be enough to slow Frieza and his cronies down, or at least hold them off until we get the upper hand. The first sign that we had run out of time was seen when Vegeta completely froze up, holding the scouter limply in his small hands and staring up at the sky. We all followed his gaze and saw what looked like meteors falling from the sky. I would have believed that that is what they were, if not for the fact that there was 5 of them falling in a perfect formation, and that I'm almost positive that my prince was not afraid of falling space rocks. Our eyes met. I asked a silent question, and I could see a deep-seated fear in his eyes as he spoke. The Ginyu Squad. I clenched my fists in anger, immediately placing faces to the name. The 5 of them continuously harassed and molested my prince and would pay dearly for it. I told Bulma to take Gohan, Dend and Vegeta back to the village, using some flimsy excuse that they had to protect the village in case others come. As I took off, I sensed my prince beside me. He told me that he had gotten a lot stronger since the last time he saw the squad, and that he couldn't overcome his demons without beating the snot out of them first. I could tell I wasn't going to be able to convince him otherwise and let him come, as opposed to knocking him unconscious, taking him back to the village and leave strict instructions to keep him that way. However, I did rationalize that he did need to prove something with these aliens, and to let him do that, because there is no way in hell that I am letting him fight Frieza. Gohan quickly joined us as well, and I decided that I either needed to become stricter with these people, or stop giving orders. The fight was almost anticlimactic. Ever since the first time I had seen them, or rather, what they were doing, I had wanted to beat them up. Now, however, I was almost disappointed at how easily they were defeated. Even Vegeta was staring at the place where they first showed us their ridiculous pose. You know it's serious when I say something is ridiculous, in shock. I bet he couldn't believe that he had defeated the same group that had tormented him for years, who, just an hour ago, were sneering and insulting him, trying to provoke him into making a mistake. I was happy that my lessons in self-control were put into practice. I was also damn proud of him. We made our way back to the village, and were greeted with hugs and pats on the back by everyone there. Was I the only one that didn't notice any women or women-looking Nameks around? Suddenly, one man ran in a panic up to the elder, out of breath and looking horrified. He brought word from other villages. Apparently someone is going through them, looking for the Dragon Balls, and when they don't find them, all they leave is ruin. I turned to Vegeta, but he simply said that it could be anyone on Frieza's ship, from a low-level grunt to the monster himself. Although he highly doubted the latter. By this point, we had gathered all 7 Dragon Balls. All we needed to do now is figure out what to wish for. We couldn't just wish back our own friends and leave the innocent Nameks that had perished dead. However, Bulma and my son came up with a great solution along with Dend. We'd wish back Piccolo first, so the Earth Dragon Balls are back, then wish back all the innocents that died today, and then well, we weren't sure what to do with the last one. We'd figure that one out later. For now, I just wanted to get my hands on Frieza. I got lucky in my efforts to stop Vegeta from fighting his childhood tormentor. One of Den's friends, Nail, was seriously injured during one of the raids on the villages. So he and Gohan flew off to a nearby village to get herbs to help his healing. While they were gone, we felt a power surge off to the far right. I had taught Vegeta how to read ki on our way here, therefore, he immediately identified it as Zarbon and his fat pink companion. He got this determined look on his face, before turning to me and forbidding me from coming to help out, even going so far as to order me as my prince. I guess the fight with the Ginyu squad really boosted his confidence. All I hoped was that he wouldn't get too cocky. I wanted to tell him that his orders don't mean anything anymore, when I felt a faint humming of power. As I was much better at sensing ki, Vegeta didn't feel it, and probably wouldn't unless it surged. It was faint, but immensely powerful. Although I had never identified his ki before, I knew, without a doubt, that this was Frieza, and that our adventure on this planet was going to come to an end very soon. I let Vegeta go to face his lifelong tormentors alone. I would be watching, but I was sure that he could handle them both without too many problems. Just as long as he kept the mid-fight gloating to a minimum. I then turned to Bulma and took her back to our ship. I needed her to be ready to get Gohan and Vegeta off the planet as quick as possible if it was needed. Leaving instructions with the villagers to keep Gohan, Dend and the Dragon Balls in the village when they returned, I flew off in Frieza's direction, ready to avenge my home planet, the family I never got to know and my prince who never stood a chance against this monster. I approached him rapidly, not allowing anything to slow me down, not even the soldiers around him that were shooting at me with really crap accuracy. He looked just as smug as the last time I saw him, sitting in that black hover chair thing. He watched as I easily dodged all the blasts and headed straight for him. My new goal was to get him out of that chair. So I did. He saw it coming, but probably thought I couldn't hurt him. Therefore, he was very surprised when my fist met his face and he was sent flying out of his chair. The soldiers behind me were shocked into silence, unable to comprehend what I had just done, I guess. He got back up, no longer smirking with purple blood dribbling out of his mouth. He wanted my name, but I didn't answer him, instead launching another attack. This time he reacted, but I could see he was hard-pressed to successfully block it. I jumped back and our eyes met. The battle had begun. We fought, almost equals, but he had the upper hand. He kept transforming and raising his power level, while I was left the same, with the knowledge that I was not allowed to fail keeping me going. It was only during a split second's rest that I noticed that Vegeta had won against Frieza's right-hand men and was now rapidly flying towards us. The currently purple and white monster simply kept fighting, so I guess that he didn't know how to sense ki, luckily for us. I needed to try and get Vegeta to stop somehow, to get him to go to the village and get Den to make the wishes, using the last one to get everyone off the planet. By the time the battle was done, I don't think there will be much of a planet left. Before Frieza had the chance to see my prince, I used solar flare to temporarily blind him. I only needed a few seconds to tell Vegeta what to do. I only hoped that he wasn't going to be stubborn about it. Surprisingly, he had the exact same idea in his mind and had detoured to the village to get them to do exactly that. I had to wonder at that point if Saiyans had the power to read each other's thoughts. We remembered Frieza when we heard him start to chuckle. Well, if it isn't my little lost monkey prince. Please tell me, Vegeta, where have you been all this time? My prince sneered at the tyrant, but I could see that he was petrified. Facing your worst nightmare is not as easy as it may seem. I moved in front of him, a subconscious gesture that seemed to speak volumes to the monster. Ah, it seems you have found another loyal subject. Tell me, is this the little brother of one of your guards? You know, the one who died first. I must say that he did like to talk about you a lot. I don't really know what he was planning, to have the quick-to-anger prince launch himself into his death, either at the mention of his close friend or of an obviously private conversation, or to have me feeling more guilt at playing a part in his death. Either way, he got neither, and his annoyance showed. With a nod to each other, we started to fight him side by side, complementing each other's moves and providing backup whenever needed. It almost felt like we were fighting as one, and I don't think I have ever felt more complete in a battle. With our combined effort, we evened the score and now we were very evenly matched. However, we had the upper hand with two fighters, and he knew it. He sought to rectify that. It happened without warning. We had just sent him crash to the ground with a combination kick, blast, punch. Vegeta turned to me and smiled. It was a smile so full of hope and passion. He was starting to really believe that revenge could actually be had, and he knew that we could do it together, when it happened. From the crater that had formed from Frieza's impact, a thin beam shot, quick as lightning, straight through his chest, only barely missing my shoulder. Time stopped and he seemed to just float there for a second, eyes wide, before he started to fall. I caught him before he hit the ground, but it didn't matter, he was gone. Blood flowed from the hole in his chest and seeped out of his mouth. For one hysterical moment, I wondered if he would have survived if he was still in his stupid battle armor. As I stared at his relaxed face, knowing that he was going to heaven because hell would never accept somebody so beautiful, I heard the cackling of the devil himself. He, I always did tell Vegeta that he lets his guard down far too easily. Why, I remember the first time I wasn't listening anymore. All I could hear was a dull roar, as if I was surrounded by fire. I gently placed Vegeta on the ground, unwilling to let anything happen to his body, and walked towards the white tyrant. Fire seemed to flow through my veins. White, hot, angry fire, that no amount of water would be able to contain. He had stopped gloating by now, looking shocked and maybe even a little bit scared. I felt changes in my body, felt the ground below give a little with every step I took, but I took no real notice. All I was focused on vengeance, and the devil who had signed his own death warrant. I would show him no mercy now. Ended.